Natasha June, I'm so excited to have you on Mindful Mutiny. We've been waiting for a really long time. You and I have had a lot of discussions about this. You've got your own podcast. And I just wanted to kind of start by, number one, welcoming you to Mindful Mutiny. And can you please talk about your experience and what you do?
I can, but firstly, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your show. You are so awesome, and I love the work that you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you. So there's two parts to this interview. There is your own personal experience that is really, really important for people out there that are dealing with narcissistic abuse. And then you have a specialty in working with people with podcasts. And so these two like wonderful different parts of you, can I have you just kind of like do a little bio on yourself?
Sure. So I've been producing podcasts for a long time before podcasting was even a word. They used to call them online streaming talk shows. So that was super fun. And I have, worked my way through the industry and got to work with some amazing celebrities, influencers, and high profile people. And when it came to my own personal experience, it made sense for me. And I'll go into my experience, but I'll link the two this way. Is it made sense for me to produce my own show. This is the way that I could give back the skill that I have and I could give. And the reason I do my show is because so many people helped me in my healing journey and still do. I think healing is a spiral and we are ever evolving beings. So about, I think 7 years ago, I came to the realization that I was in a highly abusive relationship. It wasn't physical abuse. It was more emotional, financial, and verbal abuse. And I had a small child at that stage. He was 1 year old. And I really had to come to terms that I had been in this 7-year relationship, married for 5 years, that was completely destructive and had, towards the end of my relationship, I really felt that I don't know how I was going to survive the next year, because emotionally completely drained, spiritually spent. I felt like my soul was dead and I was a shell of a human being.
My God. I really want to go back to the beginning of all of this, because you're kind of starting at the end here. So you met a guy, and where were you living at the time?
I was still living in South Africa at the time, but I'd come on a trip to the US because I spent some time in California before living here, and then I fell in love with it. And then I went back. My parents were aging. My mom wasn't well. I wanted to go and be there with them and for them. And I always had this thing in my head that I was going to come back to California and live in LA. And it just didn't happen. And life went on in South Africa, and, life just goes on. But I hadn't decided to commit to being in South Africa, and I hadn't made any moves to leave either. Yeah. And I kind of got to this point in time that I needed to make a decision. So I came on a trip here, and that's when I had already decided that I was moving here before I met him. And then I met him, and I went back to South Africa for 6 months, and then I came back to the US and to live.
So that's a huge change in your life, even though you've got kind of stars in your eyes for Southern California that can be very beautiful when you're not stuck in traffic. And you come out here and you meet a guy, and I imagine that it's awesome. I know that he was a very successful man, and it had to just feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm walking into the life that I've always wanted in beautiful, sunny California.
It did. And I also feel like I was very hesitant with relationships before this relationship. That was the way I was. And I had been seeing a therapist back in South Africa, amazing, amazing woman. And we did some work But I realize now that it was just barely scratching the surface. So when I did meet him, I was under the delusion that I had done the work and I would be attracting somebody different and somebody who would be my equal, and I wouldn't be bringing in all these bad or negative traits into this new relationship. So, but not that I even knew what to look for. Like now I know exactly what to look for. And at that stage, I didn't even, it wasn't even a thing. So I felt like I'd done the work. I, was, healed my relationship section in my life, or whatever you want to call it. And I met this person, and he was very loving in the beginning and gushing. And, they talk about love bombing. Well, it was absolute love bombing. So yeah. And then soon after I arrived in the US, it started to fade. The undermining me, the putting me down, all of that started to happen, but it was so insidious that you don't notice it. And he also was playing on things that I had no confidence in, and at the same time playing on things that I was super confident about. So it kind of started to distort my reality of myself. So my insecurities became magnified, and the things that I did have confidence in, my confidence started to wane, and I didn't feel, I started to question myself, should I say.
Okay. All right. So the love bombing, which is a really, really common thing among not only narcissists, but cult religions that start with this. They make you feel like $1,000,000 just for who you are. And we love you so much. And you can have anything that you want. And we're your family, and all of this. It is really one of the hallmarks of the person or the group that has these narcissistic and controlling traits coming from their perspective of, it's a system of control from like right on out, because you can really manipulate a person when you make them feel great about themselves. You can really kind of work them around like putty in your hands. It's kind of an easy thing to do. And it sounds like, at the time that you were pretty susceptible to that.
I was susceptible to that. And also, part of the love bombing comes a thing called the exceptionalizing. So it's like exceptional behavior towards the person. It's different. So I was treated differently. I was treated nicer than he treated other people. Like, oh, in the first few years of the relationship, oh, he speaks to other people like that. He'd never speak to me like that.
Right.
He does super special things for me, but he doesn't do that for other people. So I'll give you an example. This will be like a nice example for your audience, and it can be very tangible.
Sure.
So my first birthday spent in the US. It happened to be on a Friday. No, it happened to be on a Thursday, and I didn't work on a Friday at that stage. And I woke up early Thursday morning to go to work, and there was this beautiful note left for me. Make sure you come home on time from work today. Get ready. I'm picking you up. We're going on a surprise. And I just text me and confirm that you're not going to work tomorrow because I have another surprise for you. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Pick me up. We went to this historical restaurant in Los Angeles called Yamashiro. It overlooks the city. It's absolutely beautiful. The next day, he arranged for me to go to the spa for the entire day, with massages and lunch and the whole thing. It was absolutely wonderful. The next year, my birthday happened to be shortly after our wedding. He was not in the US. He was on a trip, and he forgot to wish me happy birthday.
Well, You know,
Sounds like a silly example, Jeremy. I just want to put that does sound like a silly example, but it was a pattern of behavior that happened so much.
yeah.
But it just,
Well,
and then we never spent my birthday again together.
wow. So
Like
now
every year we went on a trip for his birthday. So let's just say that.
you're telling this story from the perspective of who you are right now. And there's the likelihood that somebody's listening to this who is in the position of going, is this real? Is this relationship real that I'm in right now? And so from who you were at the time, when you had all of this like lavished upon you, why what made you avoid recognizing red flags? What inside you made you dismiss things?
So, like I said, it builds on your insecurities. So I was like, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe that isn't appropriate. So there was that thing. And then the other thing is he was bringing it from the perspective that he was trying to make me a better human being. Oh, I'm just trying to help you. But at the same time, kicking me under the table, glaring at me because I shouldn't have said something, or telling me afterwards that, how could you say that? Everyone around here thinks that you're an idiot, thinks that I'm an idiot for being with you because you're so dumb.
Oh, good God.
So things like that. So you start to question yourself, and it's so slow, and it's such a little bit in the beginning. So it's, let's say I'm just, trying to make this simple. Let's say it's one devaluing event and 6 positive experiences. And then that slowly changes to where it's just constantly devaluing you, and maybe splattered in every now and then with a good event or a good experience. So you're like, oh, well, he's having a bad day, or, oh, it's, he's really trying to make me like my thing was like, he was trying to make me more accustomed to what America's about. Maybe coming from South Africa, I don't know what I don't know, kind of thing. And it's
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right. So you get married, and it feels like from what you're talking about, the air is getting let out of the balloon fairly quickly.
Yeah.
With how things are going. And so what you get married, and how does it go from there?
I mean, also constantly I was making excuses. I was, oh, he works really hard, or, oh, he's had a stressful day, or it's I'm not doing enough, or I could be doing more to calm things down, or there's all these little things that are happening at the same time. But it's at the same time as you having these experiences and these thoughts, you being devalued and shown how much less value you have. So there were just constant experiences and things that happened throughout the day where my time wasn't considered, where it was my opinion wasn't taken into consideration. All of these things where you just showing that, okay, other people are better than you, or he is better than me. It's this constant comparison. So you're trying, like in my situation, I can only talk from my situation because I don't know anyone else's, but I was constantly trying to improve things that I could do and things that I could control, to thinking that would help.
Yeah. If you and honestly, that's like completely rolls into the whole mind fuck that there is when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, because you're going, oh, I just simply need to be smarter. I need to be better. That person's right. I could have handled that a little bit better. I could work on this. I could learn American culture better, or like whatever it is. So you're putting yourself in a position of, being lower in status than the other person. And then, how far along are you when the two of you, now a lot of stuff happens before you get pregnant?
Yes. So I mean, we tried for a number of years, and not for the. And I'm also super open about this because I feel like not a lot of people talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it is something so private that happens. I could easily get pregnant. I just couldn't stay pregnant.
Okay.
So my son is my 6th pregnancy.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, that also puts a toll onto one's relationship, and you can be then making excuses with that. Oh, well, he just, all of the stuff. And then I had a health issue in between where I have a pacemaker, and it needed to get, the battery part of it needed to get changed out, and I developed an infection. So there was back and forthing to the hospital, and eventually it came out, and there was emergency surgery when it came out because there were complications during it, and it took me a long time to recover from that. So that, then I lost my voice. I always laugh and always chuckle and say, I didn't have a voice, therefore God took it away. I had to work really hard to get it
how
back.
wrong you are about that. There's probably something there. And I just want to kind of pause and give weight to the moment here of all of those human beings that are gone from your life now, all of those little humans that you didn't get to know. The grief involved in that kind of thing is something that, never leaves, and that only people who have had that happen to them truly understand the depth of that despair. And I've worked in therapy with couples, both men and women, who've had this occur multiple times, and the kind of feeling lost that there is in that. And so, and women often get upset with themselves when this happens, even though it's not their fault. And so is that another part of your story where, how did that affect you?
Jeremy, I feel like if it happened to me today with the person I am today, I would feel it so much more deeply because I'm so more connected to my emotions.
I see.
But I think I was so detached then. I was already detaching from myself, and it just, everything is kind of like there's a fog over that time. So I don't really know. I think I remember being very, very sad the first time. And the next time I was like, okay, well, I guess this happens. You kind of suppress the feelings a little bit. Let's move on. We'll try again.
Yeah.
It's kind of that feeling. But I mean, I had an amazing doctor, and she was so compassionate with me. And I think that also really helped.
Well, yeah, 100% it will. Yeah. And more about the marriage. He is becoming less and less, or is it like a light switch where sometimes he's very warm and loving and other times the light switch is off? What is he doing, and how are you learning to respond to it?
I am just keeping quiet. No, I think that's part of where, twofold. So his behavior, and I think this is very common, escalates. The behavior escalates over time. It doesn't stay as status quo. It tends to change. So they're putting me down, and the experience, the negative experiences, became more and more and more. And towards the end of our marriage, I started to gain a voice because I'd been told so much that I needed to fix myself. So I needed to go see a therapist, and I needed to go on a retreat, which I did, which was the best thing I ever did. And And I think from that point onwards, I started to regain some fight. Not that I had any, but I would answer back. So everything there was just constant, I don't even know, there was just constant friction all the time. I think maybe, there were moments maybe of pleasantries, but it was really towards the end, and especially after my heart surgery, that kind of was a moment of where a lot of our relationship changed considerably. That became way more destructive than it was positive.
Yeah, tell me about how everything ended. What happened? What was the end of all of this?
So I had an experience with my son where I was able to see how he was treating my son, but I still couldn't see how he was treating me. So I was still the one that needed to fix myself. But I didn't like the way that he was treating my son. And it was very early. It was when my son was less than a year. I said I wanted to leave the relationship. And he said if I ever left, I would never see my son again. I didn't know that that wasn't true. I panicked and I just waited basically until one day he said to me, "We're done." It kind of got to the first he said to me, "We're done." And then we kind of, nothing really happened from that. And then I want to say about 6 weeks later, he said to me, "You have 48 hours to leave." And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is my way out.
Yeah.
So I did whatever I could. So I came at the end of that day, I came back to him and I said, I remember wording it, and I didn't do this on purpose, but I remember saying, I can't leave in 48 hours. And he probably thought to himself, you see, I've got her, she's stuck or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember pausing and said, but I can leave in 72. Because I had organized somewhere to stay and all of that. And
That's reasonable.
And I don't think he thought I would do it. And I did. And then from that, I landed up, by the grace, I'd really say this, by the grace of God, because it was not a linear way. I landed up at seeing a counselor at the Domestic Violence Center in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And through that, so I thought that I was speaking to this woman on the phone about navigating social security, or helping me in that way, because I had nothing.
Right.
And she said to me, "Okay, yeah, you can come in for it." It was kind of like a 10-minute intake on the phone, and then she said, "Yes, you can come into the appointment." And I said, "Okay." So when I got there and she was asking me all these questions, I think she could see that I had like this bewildered look on my face, like I didn't know what was going on. She said, "Do you know what we do here?" And because the type of questions she was asking me, I said, "Actually, no." And she told me, and I responded, and I remember this like it was yesterday. And I responded and I said, "I'm not a victim of domestic violence. Thank you so much for your time. I don't want to use up your resources, and I'm done," kind of thing. And she said to me, "No, I believe that you are. We still have time left on the session. If you are open to it, can we do some education?" And she gave me a printed out sheet that said the 11 signs of gaslighting at the top. And then it had a heading, and then it was a paragraph of just word, comma, of examples, or phrase of examples. Then it was the next one and the next one, and it was on both sides. And she said to me, "Circle everything we're going to read it out loud, and I want you to circle everything that's happened to you in the last 6 months. Not over your entire lifetime or over a relationship, just over the last 6 months." And I circled 90% of the page. Yeah.
Wow. An objective measure. on
Yeah.
things. And what an incredible social worker to go, no, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
I think there's some things to learn here. That's really amazing. What a quality professional.
So that was really the start of me going so deep into myself. And I know, Jeremy, you have experience with this. And I was willing to try anything and everything because I wanted to escape what was going on in my head. I wanted to escape how I just, I was not the same person as I was at all.
You've said some things here that make me want to ask you a particular question. Do you feel have you worked on forgiving yourself for things that you believed, things that you did, things that you didn't say, things early on when you think back and go, why didn't I recognize this? Why didn't I know this? Have you done any work like that?
Interesting, Jeremy. I actually have not done that.
Hmm.
But I do see, and maybe it's maybe work that I need to be doing, but I do see now the I don't ever want anyone to feel anything by what I'm about to say, positive or negative. It's just my own personal experience. I feel incredibly grateful. And I have been able to, through the work that I've done, find the blessings in it. It wasn't something that came easy. It was just something that came by chance. I just happened to be journaling and this thing came up, these feelings came up. And so I journaled about it. And then I started to make a list of all the things. And just for months, I worked on this thing. And I can say it's very easy for me to say, I am so grateful because I have the most beautiful, beautiful little boy and I love him. But there are so many other things that are not obvious that I can be grateful for. Like being here today, talking to you and talking about this, it wouldn't have happened without that experience.
No, it wouldn't. And with regard to forgiveness, there really is two very distinct different types. And we learn, growing up in Sunday school and so forth, the concept of forgiving others for the way that they have trespassed upon you, as you forgive them, and they forgive you. That's outside forgiveness, which is actually egoic based. It's I'm a victim and I have the ability to forgive. The healing kind of forgiveness is this forgiveness of self for falling short of who you are now or who you had wanted to be at a certain point. And this self-forgiveness, that is where healing lives. And there's just a few things that you've said in this that feel very self-judgy. Like, I should have known this. I didn't look at the red flags. I got love bombed and I got these different things. And there's these little pieces of this where the opportunity that you were just talking about, it's this stuff didn't happen, you wouldn't now have the ability to go, I think there's more forgiveness of myself to do. I think there's more loving of myself to have, because, after all, there was a certain point where the light bulb went on and you said, I'm not going to put up with this.
Yeah.
On behalf of my child. And maybe some of these bad things, more of this than I realize, has also happened to me too. And you were open to learning things, and you walked out of this relationship, threadbare, both emotionally and financially. This gentleman, as I understand from you, was a successful man and had a lot. And, looking back on your whole experience, what is it that you would tell the person right now who may be starting to think, my God, I think I'm in a narcissistic relationship? Like, what are the things that they should be evaluating about the relationship to kind of get a bead on whether or not they are in a problem relationship?
I'd say the best thing to do is to probably seek help in some way. And I know being in a relationship like this, it's hard. It's hard to read books. I hid books. I had a therapist because when I had my heart surgery, the doctors decided that, you know, both him and I needed to see a therapist separately because of everything that had happened. And my doctors thought I was like too okay about it. I was like just taking it in my stride. So I did. And she obviously could see what I couldn't. And she gave me 3 books. The one I can't remember the name of. The other one was Stop Walking on Eggshells. And there was another one. I've also gone blank on the name. Anyway, but there were 3 of them. One was like borderline personality, living with somebody with borderline personality order and something else. And I was so nervous to take them out because why would I be having books like that? And I hid them. And I didn't really face it at that point. But if you are, you know, if you can look for the signs, like look online, try and compare it, or, you know, speak to somebody. One of the biggest things for me that I realized, and this is why I do my show, Jeremy, is because there's twofold that I do my show. But the one reason is because there was so much shame and so much secrecy, and I didn't want to talk because I was made to feel like I was so awful and such a horrendous human being. I was like, if I tell somebody what's going on, like there'll be so much judgment and I am such a bad person. And so I didn't. I just kept quiet. So if you can find one person to talk to that has no judgment. I didn't even want to talk to my family because I was so nervous that they would be like, they wouldn't have had any judgment, but, you know, they would have taken action that I wasn't ready to take maybe. And they do all, so I didn't talk to anyone. And when I did start to talk to people started to confirm that I was not the crazy one and that this behavior wasn't okay. So if you could do that, or if you are able to kind of seek help, you can do that. You know, there's the domestic violence hotline that you can call and you can ask questions and you can speak to somebody there. And the best thing to do is the one thing that I highly recommend is speak to somebody who is, if you're speaking to a friend, that's fine. Speak to a friend. But if you're going to seek out help, speak to somebody that specializes in this. Yeah. Because if they don't, then they sometimes don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah. And if they do, there's often a lot of associations that the professional can make where you go, oh, well, yeah, well, that did happen. And that also happened. You talked about Stop Walking on Eggshells, which is an absolutely magnificent book. And when I recommend that people read it, they often come back in their next session and go, oh my God, oh my God. Because not only is that book revelatory when you're living with a person who has narcissistic or borderline tendencies, it also has a great deal of compassion for the person who has these behaviors and ideas, because they didn't just come out of nowhere. This person has their own deficiencies. And another thing that might be helpful for the listener who's going through this sort of thing, have a conversation with an AI chatbot about what you're going through.
Oh, that's such a brilliant suggestion, Jeremy.
Oftentimes those conversations, they disappear when you X out of the window. And so it's not traceable. And they're pulling information from all over the place and can talk to you about what it is that you are going through. They can provide resources to you. You go, do I have a problem? This happened. And they'll either tell you that it's like a normal behavior or give you some context on what you're going through so you don't feel crazy anymore.
Yeah. I agree. That is such a smart idea. I didn't even think of that. But there's so many great resources online. Like people talk about it today.
Yeah.
So you can listen to people and you can start to say, is that me? Am I? Because I also found with people who are in a relationship like this, or people, it could even be a work relationship or a friendship. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a personal relationship, an intimate relationship, should I say.
Right.
It is, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, people who are like, who are not the narcissist or the borderline or on that side of the relationship, the person on the other side of the relationship receiving the effects of that are generally people who are self-reflective. And so you can think about it. You can think, okay, well, I'm, see this thing online, and is that truly me, or is it a one-time thing? Is this really? And you could just ask yourself those questions. But yeah, for me, I would say the biggest thing, if it was this time in 2018, let's say, or maybe in 2017, and I started to have these little flickers, coming on in my mind as to, I didn't like the way he was treating my son, things like that. I think seeking help is probably the best thing to do. Because I've seen it with some friends of mine who were still in their marriage and they started to seek help. It was much easier. Oh, no, I don't want to say that. It was the way you exit the relationship is safer.
Gotcha.
Because you've got a safety plan, you've got support, you've got all these things in place. And there is some kind of realization. So maybe you've already started saving money, or you've already started, trying to put feelers out there at the same times, because you know that this is happening, instead of just being so sudden. Yeah.
And the thing that also makes this so difficult on people is, but I've got a child with this person, and I'm financially dependent upon this person, and not all of this person is bad. As a matter of fact, there's pieces of this person that I do love, and it's a very confusing world to be in, particularly when the person might have moments of being their best self, and you go, there's the person that I fell in love with, like there's that person, right? But then you have to look at all of this in the totality. Can you tolerate it? Because there are situations in life where you really truly are better starting out again rather than continuing to live in it.
There are. And I think this is also one thing I learned. And I also don't want to take away from anybody who has decided to stay in the relationship because of their children or because of that, because I completely respect that and admire people who choose to do that. But what I learned, and in my personal experience, I mean, in my situation, should I say, for me leaving, I was able to be a better example for my child, and show that I was able to protect my child at least half of the time and give him tools. And because I was growing and learning, and I have been on a deep dive into the self, I can do that more so for my child today. I openly speak about the tools that I learn. Like, I got so excited last week. I mean, it was something that it obviously was just going over my head the whole time. And Jeremy, I know you're going to know about this, is the default mode network. Because it was funny. And then I re-listened to a podcast and they were talking about it too. But for some reason, it obviously had gone over my. So I got so excited when I was chatting with somebody about this the other day. But then I went and, in a very, appropriate way, spoke about it with my son, because he's at that age where it's starting to come online and he needs to be aware of it and how it can affect you. And, so I do those kind of things with him, which, being in the way that I was before, thinking about where the trajectory of our relationship and my well-being, I would never have been able to do that.
Well, your story is, I mean, it really is relatable and amazing. And the incredible thing about you is that after you left, you had a life to restart, and what you've done with it has been magnificent, to the point where you are able to have incredible influence on people. And can you talk about, you specialize in podcast production? Can you talk about where did it start, what you do?
Sure. So I've always been kind of on the production side of things. In South Africa, I produced large scale marketing experiences. So it was always, kind of on that side. But then when I came to the US, I just didn't have the same drive or energy to get into it. I was doing like a few small events. But then also starting a family, the thought of starting a family and being at events late at night, early in the morning, I was like, it's not the most ideal thing. So I decided to get my real estate license, which I still have. And I shortly after that was asked to produce a real estate lifestyle streaming talk show. So it was on YouTube and it was on this other talk show network. And that's how I landed up getting into this. And just getting more and more onto the production side. I might not be the best sound engineer, but I'm a sound engineer. I might not be the best editor, but I can edit, and direct and fully package up your podcast. And then because I have all that, our event company really focused on the ROI of an event. So it wasn't just, so over the years, I've taken in that kind of strategic thinking into podcasting and blended them together. And I get to work with some incredible people. And so it just makes me hone my skills more so every day. And the same way I am with my personal growth and my personal evolution, I approach my entire life like that. So work-wise, I do that too.
In the production side of things, you take people and you're working with some high profile people, and you take what it is that they do with their thought leadership, with their interviewing and everything like that. And do you just take the files and then help produce things and promote them, or do you do strategy for the talent?
Strategy, everything. So I work with people in a number of ways. I can be extremely hands-on, or I can be just overseeing things and directing people as to what they should do, and then they do everything themselves. But for, some of my top clients, I will do everything from strategy to picking guests based on the strategy. So I believe that people do podcasts for a few reasons. It boils down to, when you figure it out, it boils down to a few reasons. One is they want to build relationships. They're using podcasts to build relationships because it is way easier you send an email, a cold email to somebody, and you say to them, I would be honored to have a 15-minute call with you. I want to ask you one question. 90% of the time, you probably won't get a response. You send an email to somebody and you say, I have a podcast and I'd love you to be on it. It's about 40 minutes to an hour, or it's 90 minutes or whatever it is. Sometimes you can even say we record in a studio, so there's travel time, and like probably 85% of the time they'll say yes. So you can really use it to build relationships. And, you'll have a person that is two people away from the person that you want to meet. And then eventually you'll get closer and closer to the person that you want, because you're showcasing this body of work and the people that you've had on the show. The other reason is to position themselves as a thought leader. So becoming an expert in their field. It is a wonderful way to do it. The other one is people do it to make money. So whether it's leading into other businesses or bringing business in itself, There's that way. And then the last way I found, just these four, is altruistic reasons. You want to give back in some way. And you probably want to do all of those things, but there's one that really dominates. And then you build out the strategy based on that, based on where you want to go and how you want your podcast to, and then you build out how you want your podcast to look, feel, the type of shows you want to do, how it interacts with your social media, and how you build out then an ecosystem to have the outcome that you desire.
You know, it's so many people like myself, you just start with a camera, and usually recording things on a platform like Zoom that's very easy to use. And you start by just creating as much content as you can, but there is just so much more to the game than that. And you learn as you go, but oftentimes as you're going, you're making a lot of kind of mistakes along the way just because you don't know any better. And so the strategy that you bring to the fore, because you've talked to me about mindful mutiny, and we've built a new strategy that now there's going to be a lot of work to like to make happen and to put into place, and we're going to take a couple of months and redo all of this stuff. It is transformative, because these are things that would take me a lot of times in kind of like stumbling in the dark to kind of find out, because it's really, really hard to go from 0 to 10,000 subscribers, right? That's really, really hard. I imagine that it starts getting a little bit easier, the growth after that point where it's getting shared. You have the right branding, you have the right titles, you have the right descriptions. What are the kinds of things that you see that people, and you can feel free to use me as an example here, what are the mistakes that people make when they're starting out and trying to get somewhere with this?
So Jeremy, I want to just say, firstly, anybody can have a podcast. And this is the way I refer to it as, and it's awful, but you could fart into your phone, because there's people out there that just talk shit. There's no real reason for it. They just, verbally vomit into their phone, and whoops, you have a podcast. You can put it up on all the platforms, but who's going to listen to it? How are you going to get people to listen to it? So that is where the strategy becomes important. I personally only like to work with people who want to make a difference in this world. So I don't work with people who just, but I, if the right thing came along, I would, consider it. But so it's just, so you wanted to ask some of the mistakes. So some of the mistakes is that you don't know what you don't know. That's a big thing of mine. And we take your podcast, for example, is your thumbnail is beautiful for YouTube, let's say. And it's done. You can see the branding is done. It is uniform, which is amazing. If anyone sees that thumbnail, they know that comes from you, whether you have the Mindful Mutiny logo on it or not. You can see it's got a great brand identity. But like we discussed, there's no reason to click into that thumbnail if you see that thumbnail, unless they know you and the type of show that you do, or they know the guest. So if you change that and you have some kind of catchy title on the thumbnail, people will dive into it and they will know what they're clicking into. So it's like having a pretty picture on Instagram that is a cover to a reel where you are discussing something so intense. The pretty picture doesn't tell anyone what's on the other side of that. It's like there's no signage on the door to lead you in. If you have great signage that says enter here, then everyone knows to walk in there. But if there's no sign and the door is invisible, then how do you know what to do? So there's those. There's also your show notes. Like too much verbiage is overwhelming to the eye. If you want to put that all in, just spread it out differently, bullet point it, find different ways to get your message across, be concise. Word economy is a good phrase I use all the time. So there's things like that.
And you work obviously with people who are very well established in their brands. You also have the occasion to work with people like me who are really on the starting end of this incredible journey. Can you talk about, is there a difference that you see, a major difference in the mindset, a major difference in the attitude, a major difference in these two types of people?
I don't think so, actually. There's a determination, and I think the difference is that they are more comfortable with outsourcing it to somebody else, and the person who is doing it on their own wants to figure it out for themselves. There is that need that you want to crack the code. And the other people I work with are very happy to say, someone else has cracked the code, let's go over there and find the code, instead of trying to figure it out themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there a lot of people that you find to be at the higher end of things, they really, really want to focus on the creation of the product itself. They hand it over and it gets done. It allows them to move faster in the creation of things, right?
It does. But I also will say this, is that I don't know if you know who Alex Cooper is. Call her daddy. Super, she's done multi tens of millions of dollar deals with first with Spotify, now with SiriusXM. She still edits her own show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Super important to her. She still edits her own show.
Yeah.
So little things like that, you just got to find where your groove is. But there's so many tools out there that you can use today, that you can up level your being the host producer of your own show. There's tools that you can use. I can even know with my show, I was releasing it once a week, but I've decided to increase that as of a little while ago, because it's been made so much easier for me to do it because of the tools that I'm using. Because my show is the last thing that I take care of, because I'm busy taking care of all these other people. So my show doesn't get the same love and attention. I do use software to generate my clips. I'm not manually editing them like I would for some of my clients. But my show is great. Like you're going to be on it soon, which I'm super excited about.
Please go ahead and name and plug your show.
Oh, it's called Trauma Undone. And we get to unpack trauma and the different modalities that you can use to heal and move past it. And I interview experts like you, all the way from conventional experts to, shaman and energy workers, and then survivors and people who have experienced some trauma in their lives that have gone through it and come out on the other side. But the other interesting thing that I found, and Jeremy, you probably see this too, is that so many people who go into the field of helping others with trauma have experienced some trauma in their lifetime. And so I love showing that as an example to others, because, when you see somebody do something, then it means that you can do it too.
No, you will. There's this whole dynamic of the wounded healer thing. And so you have the person who's really has lived through their own pain in order to have the capacity for the compassion that's necessary to help others. And I'm looking forward to getting into that on your podcast, Trauma Undone. And lastly, with your podcast work, what is really for you the most fulfilling part of this? Because you're working with some people who are, very well established, and they're working really hard on, getting, further into where they're going. What is it that really fuels you in your life overall?
I love giving people the opportunity to tell their story, whatever that may be. So really creating and holding space for someone to share their experience. That's the one thing. And the other thing is I truly want to leave a mark on this world that it's been left in a better way than when I started. And if I can do that by touching one person's life, that's amazing. So by working with the people that I work with, that is part of their goal too. They want to make a difference. They want to help somebody. And so they are having these conversations about how to better oneself. So I have worked on a health and wellness show for a long time. And I tell you, my health and wellness is like off the charts. All the stuff that I have learned and the things that I implement are just incredible, that I wouldn't have had that knowledge and information if not working on the show. So it's great. So little things like that. It doesn't feel like work to me.
Well, here's the part of the podcast where I tell you what I love about you.
Oh my gosh.
What I love about you is from the very moment that I met you, there's this connection and this willingness to just be open, authentic, and to help. And for you to take your own story of the things that you're proud of and the things that have been ashamed of in the past, your story of discovering yourself, discovering that you were in a difficult situation, and to tell this story of survival, of discovery, of despair, of self-degradation, all of these different things that go into this whole story, for you to take this story, to turn it into a mission, to share it with other people out there. People are listening to this who are going through it right now and are watching you on the other side of it, because they're in the discovery phase of this. They're trying to figure out what it is that they're going to do. And they're listening to the stories of other people who are brave enough to actually tell the story. And you're one of those people. I love that you have taken your story and turned it into a mission. I love that you speak about it so passionately, with such a great, deep self-reflection and authenticity. I love that you survived this. I love that you moved beyond it. I love that you discovered it. I love that you kept an open mind so that you could learn more about yourself. And I love that you're on such a healing journey, that you've created a means by which for you to learn more about healing through your own podcast, Trauma Undone, for you to bring words and affirmations and understanding about trauma to people that can listen and learn from it, and for you to take your incredible knowledge and to give it as lovingly and openly as you have given it, not only on this podcast reporting, but to me as somebody with a podcast who's trying to get more subscribers, to make a bigger impact in the world, for you to share the knowledge of strategic systems with me. It has been one of the most profound gifts that I've had anybody share with me in the past year. So thank you for being who you are in this world and for sharing the you to this world.
Jeremy, thank you. That is so kind for you to say that. I'm like overwhelmed with emotion. Thank you.
How do people find out more about you?
So you can connect with me on Instagram. I am Natasha June, or my show, Trauma Undone. And that's kind of it. Like, that's where you can DM me and message me and I respond. So that's the best place. I don't have a website. It's just my work is word of mouth, and that's kind of it.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story on Mindful Mutiny.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. Please leave a review. That is how we grow. In a lifetime, there's more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest version of yourself is the most rewarding thing that you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of you. Now go be something great.